I think the audio should be back now. God damn, 3 minutes of just nothing. All right. Anyways, what I was saying while the audio was dead, sorry, was that I know some of you guys posted on YouTube. I guess I just didn't see it. Um, the what I was talking about was the inflation reading. Yesterday pre-market we had CPI data that came out. Today we had the PPI data that came out. Both were hotter than expected. The PPI figures were 3.5% versus 3.3 expected. The core figure was 3.6 versus 3.3 expected. The month-over-month figures on not the core were a little higher than expected, just as CPI was yesterday. Investors are also concerned with the jobs numbers and the jobs figures that we got going on. That's a main point of interest. We saw jobless claims this morning as well, which came out a little better than expected at 213,000 compared to 215,000. And then we had the continued jobless claims, which came out at 1.85 million compared to 1.88 million. So a bit better on the jobs front there, but the inflation data is still heating up, right? We had two inflation prints back to back, right? There are slight differences between CPI and PPI, but these inflation prints that printed yesterday and today are well, realistically a little spicier than expected, which is kind of interesting because there was an expectation of having increased inflation figures actually going into this reading, so for the month of January. Now, the effect that it's having on the market right now is just like more unilateral swings back and forth. What I was mentioning here with this chart was that NASDAQ is trying to catch a bid, but it can't break through a key resistance, a key distribution area to the upside because a lot of big tech, especially this Mag 7, is struggling. The only thing that's at all-time high is actually Meta, right? Everything else, right? Amazon is somewhat close, but everything else is kind of just dragging along, and it's not necessarily holding a good bid for this quote-unquote all-tech rally to pull things up. This is why the market's struggling to actually catch a bid through these resistance areas. Every time that we trade them, we get a strong failure from those areas, and prices reject very heavily. Some of these news events obviously do help with that, where buyers step in eventually to pull prices higher. So what we see is you had news like CPI yesterday. This is the S&P 500 futures that just pulled price down aggressively. Prior to that, going into the week itself, right, we had a gap lower. So you're seeing like an array of information that comes in that actually pulls prices significantly lower, tries to rebid. Breadth on the underlying isn't supporting that rebid attempt, and what we're seeing is continuous failed lower highs at this point, and market movement like more drastically and aggressively to the downside. So that's not really what is conducive of a strong overall market with strong breadth, and I'm still waiting to see if tech actually wants to rebid and hold prices up. Right now, this is like the 100th test into this distribution here on the S&P, right? We've moved above this 60-70 area for I don't even know how many times over the past 2 weeks right now. So we slumped under it pre-market, we moved back in it. We have a lot of volume that's accumulating around 60-67 area on the S&P. We got this weekly double distribution that's forming. Realistically, the way that things are setting up right now, I'd want to be long from that area. I want to entertain the longs today to see if we can actually expand above that 6105, which we tried last week but ultimately failed. And tomorrow's Friday. Fridays are tough ones, right? Last week I got absolutely cut in half by a news drop that just obliterated my position. So I'm going to be taking it easy. So we'll see, because usually Fridays, to wrap up the week, we see a lot of the news that we don't want to see going into the weekend. So with that being said, I do want to look for a buy-side momentum push today, right, from that 60-70 area on the SPOOs for the 1,000th time, but I'm going to be cautious with that because we need to start moving above that mid-80. We need to start moving above the 6105 to make things whole again. So I leave you with that, and we'll chat tomorrow, Friday. Bye day.